Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alliance tournament and the commentary booth. We're here just waiting for these two titans of tranquility, the Goonies Boonies, to get on with it and show us just who is the most elite of PvPers. Elise, why don't you take us through this very interesting GoonSwarm Federation comp?
Alright, welcome guys. GoonSwarm Federation in blue, Brave will be in red here. We saw it's kind of very similar to what we saw in the last match, but with very key differences. Goons have brought an EOS, Augur for reps, which is a Tech 1 logistics cruiser, saving on points, but trading that for speed and tank. And they've taken 2 Ishtars, 2 Vexors, 2 Vexor Navy issues, and 2 Myrmidons. So all out drones, no tackle, no ranged webs, nothing of the sort. They're just going to say, you know what, we're going to throw these drones out and see what happens. Also, crucially, we can see that the GoonSwarm have no control bar, which means their mid slots are probably filled with drone speed mods and drone tracking mods. So no tracking disruptors, which is crucially what gave End of Life the advantage versus Waffles in the last match. So this might go very poorly. Hashtag pray for Asher if this does not work out right. Jin, break down the Brave Collective comp for us.
Yeah, we've got 30 seconds left at the start of this match, so I'm going to go through this as quickly as possible. What Brave Collective have brought here is they've brought a similar to what Waffles brought in the last match, but with much more focus on offensive control. You can see how big that control bar is. That Balgorn is going to be critical to how they win or lose this match. If they can put it in the right spot, get a newt or web off on the Augur at the start, it's going to completely win the match in the favor of them. See what they do.
Yeah, I don't think it hasn't been announced that the Brave are bringing a flagship Balgorn, so this is just a standard Balgorn, so it doesn't have those 70-kilometer webs at all. But as you mentioned, the Augur is the primary for the Brave Collective. They're firing a lot of stuff, and it is actually webbed. The Augur of River Geist is webbed.
And that's going to be 12
let's see how much
points
damage is applied.
Yeah, you can see, oh, look at the damage going down on that Augur. And GoonSwarm here going for a very critical move, going on those bombers, trying to reduce that incoming DPS as much as possible. That's going to be critical because they are not going to be able to keep this logistics alive as it's going, and gone. The only hope they have now is to try and turn around, off a lot of this support, and then move in on that Aneros. Do you think they can do it? I mean, it doesn't look like anyone else has tackled here.
I mean, GoonSwarm seem to be going after a lot of the bombers. So bombers can do, for very little points, they can offer a lot of damage. They are essentially glass cannons. Unfortunately, Goons really need to take down this Oneros, because while their drones are very speedy and have pretty good tracking, I can assure you, these are the fastest drones in the West right now. It's still not enough. As we see, this Hound got caught with a sliver of structure. This is like 45 structure HP points left on this Brave Collective Hound, and Goons have traded a Vexor Navy issue for it. They're getting tackled left and right by these Daredevils. They need to deal with these Daredevils that are just dismantling this kiting drone team by GoonSwarm.
Yeah, and obviously one of the key disadvantages of a drone comp, no matter how fast your drones go, is they can't switch targets as fast as a turret-based composition like the one Brave Collective has bought, and that's giving Brave Collective those precious few seconds they need to switch the reps over to the right target and keep them alive in the face of just overwhelming DPS here. And speaking of overwhelming DPS here, there goes another Ishtar. So much damage off the field now for GoonSwarm. They need to make a kill, or they need to get out of range and regroup themselves.
Yeah, Oneros is caught. Hilariously enough, as I mentioned, Goons have no webs or control. They do have webbing drones from their Vexor Navy issues. These webbing drones are going after the Oneros of Brave Collective, but are not nearly enough. Yukuko rather is okay. Now he's dead, so I guess it did do nearly enough. But yeah, GoonSwarm Federation, hilariously enough, using Vexor Navy issue web drones that go ridiculously fast. We saw this tactic used in Alliance Tournament 12 and 13. Very good sometimes, but not nearly enough for them right now, as Goons have lost 2 Ishtars, a Vexor Navy issue, and are about to lose another Vexor right now.
Yeah, they tunneled so hard on that Hound. They if they'd have been able to kill off that Aneros earlier, they could have been well through a Brutix or a Navy Harbinger or some core part of Brave Collective's comp here. But instead, they've just got 2 Vexers, 2 Myrmidons, and an Eos with which to take on practically the whole of Brave Collective's group. They need to kill off those Daredevils, and they need to kill off that Hound, and they need to get out of range of those Harbingers. That's going to be a monumental task, even for a team as talented as this.
Credit to Goon pilots, which is not a phrase you'll hear anyone say very often, but they are flying very well right now. The Myrmidons and the Eos are spread apart from one another. The Vexers were actually pretty far and away from one another when they were going down. Unfortunately, these Daredevils just go like 4K a second and can pin down these kiting ships with ease. So we saw Sari Blackfist go down. Now Quan Showa is about to go down as he is Daredevil tackled and not going anywhere. Brave only have 4 battlecruiser hulls. But with this Balgorn, they're able to control so much of the field along with these 2 Daredevils. It's absolutely ridiculous how much control they have. And this Daredevil, all it has to do is just reach out and touch and grab something, and then the damage, follow-up damage from these Navy Harbingers and Navy Brutix Corps will just finish them off. Poor GoonSwarm now just getting dismantled piece by piece. Poor little guys.
Yeah, and you've got to say that those Daredevils, the ability to bring those Daredevils has just changed the face of these kind of comp significantly. Those 90% webs are so much more effective than the 50 to 60% that we'd seen in previous Alliance tournaments from the Punishers that you typically fit in that role. Do you think we'll see more anti-supporters just because of that?
I think we absolutely have to, like these Daredevils are just too good for what they do. You almost need your own Daredevils to screen off Daredevils, and perhaps that is the best way to go about it. We did see teams like Tuskers bring the Hyena as a good counter to the Daredevils, and if you can see the bans on the left side of your screen, Brave crucially have banned the Hyena. I have a feeling GoonSwarm probably wanted to bring something a little bit different, maybe incorporating a Hyena for control and target painters. But with that ban, they had to change it out real quick.
Yeah, looking at those bans, you see a curse. That's got to tip the hat to GoonSwarm that that Brave was bringing something that's vulnerable to either tracking disruptors or newts, and yet they brought neither. That seems like a critical fail from the captain there of Asher Elise.
It's kind of hard though. You can just overthink yourself, and when doing these bans, it's really easy to do like, oh, I'm gonna get in their head, I'm gonna do all this cool stuff. But the best tactic is literally the tactic that Brave is just ban what you don't want to see, and don't worry if someone tries to counter. We see some good fights in local from this GoonSwarm team, which will be going down to the lower bracket. Well, they will have to see Waffles, who also lost their first match of the day. My goodness, Goons and Waffles both going down. We will send it back to the studio with Brave Collective taking a 100 to 23 drubbing of Asher Elias and the GoonSwarm Federation.
We've got the Kings of Losec with Project Mayhem.
Hey guys, welcome back. Brave there, edging out against GoonSwarm Federation, another BC core team, this time with the Balgorn on top, notably a T2 Balgorn. Brave do not have a flagship in this tournament, they did not split it in time against Goon's take on the drone comp, which I don't feel was quite as strong as some of the other drone comps we've seen today. But of course, my favourite part of that match personally is that we got to see the patron saint of bomber pilots, Rin Miller himself. I believe we are going to have his kill mail up on screen, possibly not now, but possibly very soon as that comes through the old API system. What do you guys think of that match, Goons versus Brave? Any particular moments that you picked out?
I personally think that Goons going like trying to clear bombers was, I mean, it was a good choice for them. They need to get rid of that really squishy DPS, but the Aneris pilot, Yukiko, in the Aneris, held up those bombers just fine. And even when he died, the patron saint bomber activated his capital energizer on his bomber and survived in structure for about 20 seconds. So definitely got the good old Brave hacks going there.
So Tony, we were talking a little bit about, whilst we were watching the match, about how we weren't as fond of the GoonSwarm drone comp as we were towards other comps. What were your thoughts on it?
I didn't like the fact that they have more points invested in Myrmidons rather than Eoses. They do have that tech. They did bring a Tech 1 Logi, Augurer, instead of that Tech 2 Logi, and by bringing that, they basically got 3 BCs. They got Eos double Myrmidon, but I don't think I don't think they made up for the fact that they bought a Tech 2 Logistic. I think it would have been better for them to run something else instead of the Eos or the second Myrmidon, and just bring a Tech 2 Logistic instead if they're going to bring one. If not, go the Tuskers route and just don't bring a Logistic and just fill everything with drones.
Yeah, I mean, another thing we saw there that's kind of weird for drone comps is that the GoonSwarm Federation stayed quite clumped up. They kind of took the drone comp around as a group. With turret comps, with missile comps, that tends to be a little bit more normal, because that means if something tries into you, then you are all in optimal, you can all blap it. Whereas with drones, obviously, your drones are in optimal as long as they're within drone control range. If you split off the drone team, then each ship has to be chased down. It increases the time between target, especially in drone versus drone, because of all of that travel time going on there. Do you think this was just a case of GoonSwarm just not quite understanding the real strength of the drone comp, just bringing something that looked like it had the right amount of hulls and maybe not have tested against enough people who've seen different variants and kind of worked out what's best? Or do you think this was fairly reasonable, but not necessarily as bad as we're making it out to be?
I think it's fairly reasonable. I think they really let themselves down with the target calling a little bit. I don't know why they spent too long on Hounds. They got through that first Brutix really fast once they actually just dropped Berserkers and killed it. I think they're trying to clear the bombs on the bombers in case Brave did a bombing run on their drones to kill them. Vex and Navy issues are actually especially vulnerable to that because they only have one flight of heavies, and then you can only have a backup of 3 heavies because it only has 200 meters cubed. Or typically you'll have like maybe 5 heavies plus lights and then maybe 2 backup heavies or something. I think what they should have been doing is going onto the MJD beacons and spreading out. I think maybe they were anchoring up or they're flying together. We only saw webs on a lot of the tackle ships that were dying. They could have MJD'd away. They should have spread themselves out a lot more, I think. And I think they could have taken that if they had slightly better target calling and they flew the Vex and Navy, the drone ships a lot more independently.
Yeah, and Reload, we saw there the T2 Bal from Brave here. Now, typically speaking, we usually see a flag bal in that role, in that extra shotgun comp we talk about. When we say that, we mean a flag bal with typically in a Neros, maybe a Guardian if bans happen, followed by some battle cruisers with long-range weapons, and then some tackle support, a bit of flavor frig going on. Do you think that a T2 bal is worth it? Because generally, the main strength of Officer Fitting a Bal is that you get those Toby webs on there, such that if the bal warps in at 0, it can just web out to the entire enemy team regardless of the range they warp in at. We saw the bal come in at a bit of range, and it was T2 fit. Do you think that the bal still works in that comp? It's T2 fit? Do you think it's better to go straight into full BCs as we saw Waffles bring? Or do you think that the T2 bal has its place in that comp?
I mean, T2 bal does have its place, but it is more expensive now than it was in last tournament. So I think it might be worth it just to go like the full officer route, or maybe go, maybe lots more BCs, like go for the Astarte and then upgrade your support. But I think a Balgon in this case could have, it can work. You have to be careful though, because a T2 Balgon obviously does still have quite long range webs, but it doesn't have that officer range. So what Officer Balgons, what they're meant to do is to instantly get that web on the logistics ship and just like brawl it down, nude it, and stop really killing it with its lasers. But obviously, Goons did actually eventually get untackled, but it was too little too late. He was already in structure and died.
Now, we have mentioned flag bal versus regular bal. We should explain for possibly the newer members of the audience, what is a flagship? What's the rules around those? Why is that such a special ship? Tony, would you fill us in on what the rules surrounding the flagship is and why we pay so much attention to it?
Okay, so a flagship is a ship that evades bans. It has to be a pirate battleship or a navy or a Tech 1 battleship.
No T2.
No Tech 2 battleship, no Marauders or Black Ops battleship, so you can't bring a Fonz Widow if you wanted to. The main advantage of bringing a flagship is the fact that you can also violate the tournament rules a little. So you can bring Dead Space Reppers, so you can bring a Corpus X type large rep on a Balgon, for example. The main reason why people bring a Balgon, though, and what you'll see on these flag Vindicators, flag Armageddons, and flag Balgons, which make up the majority of the flagships, is the fact that you get bonus tackle. You can fit officer or faction tackle mods, as well as officer or faction energy neutralizers. So on the Balgon, for example, it has a double bonus to webs. Normally a Tech 2 Balgon can only web out to 26 kilometers with heat, maybe a bit further with links, but an officer Balgon with links can actually web out to 66 kilometers in the tournament.
And that's a really significant portion of the arena if you've only got 125k radius. I think one of the common things to say is that if you're going to choose a ship to flag, to make your flagship, you want to see how much officer fitting gains that ship. And I think the Balgon is the prime example of one of the ships that gains the most when you flagship out. The one thing that has the most gains to fitting out with those expensive mods, as you were saying. Now let's move on to look at the next match that's coming up in just 5 minutes here. We have Spectre Fleet Alliance versus Blades of Grass. Now Spectre Fleet Alliance in the last Alliance tournament, ATU14, they had a lovely little run through the bracket. They showed a fondness for whole tank battleships, which is generally considered kind of a slightly cheesy comp, but it definitely has its place. It certainly forces the opposing team to just absolutely play perfectly, because the second you get caught against a Navy battleship team, you're gone. You're just absolutely gone. It takes a very long time to kill those ships, even without Logi on field. Then unfortunately dropping down, they lost a match to PL, certainly no shame there, and then going down in the following round. I believe, I want to say it was against Spanned Apart, but I'm not 100% sure on that. It was. Great. Up against them, we have Blades of Grass, who are a new entry into the tournament series this year. They had a fantastic game in the feeder rounds a couple weeks ago. So, Tony, do you want to fill us in on that very special match?
Yeah, it was actually the fastest match in the feeder rounds, and Blades of Grass, they decided to just bring everything at 0. They bought 2 Vindicators, 2 Navy Brutixes, 2 Brutixes, 2 4Xs, and 2 Vigilants. So just every blaster, cruiser hull, plus 2 Vindicators that you can get at 0, and the opposing team decided to bring a Turtle Tinker setup at 0, and they died in less than a minute.
Well, that'll happen against Double Vindy. So given that Blades have shown proclivity for Vindies, and we have Spectre Fleet as well, showing that they do like those, brawling close-range battleships, do you think that we have the possibility of seeing our first Vindicator so far this stream? They are cut price so far. We haven't seen any yet. It's all been MBCs and drones. Give me some Vindy rush. Did you guys think we're going to see some here?
I definitely think we're going to see some wonky stuff for sure. I've definitely seen some Vindicator all-ins or crazy stuff like that for sure.
Great. So we have seen, as you mentioned, a lot of MBCs, a lot of drones. We've seen, excuse me. We've seen, we are hoping to see some Vindicator-based teams potentially. What other kind of comps, without revealing any secrets from your own teams perhaps, what other kind of meta comps, what kind of archetypes can we expect to see on the weeks going forward?
I think Rapid Lights are still pretty strong. We're probably still going to see them. Double Orpheus, double Cerberus, a team like that. You've still got Jackdaws, they're still great. We saw, I think, FCON actually bring a light missile comp, although it wasn't very good in the feeder rounds.
Yeah, it has been, I think, pretty much exclusively armor thus far. Obviously, drone ships, they tend to come in armor, though we may see Rattlesnakes and Gilas. And then, of course, the MBC core, typically that's been flown as armor, less so as shield, possibly, in fact, possibly because tracking computers and utility mids, but still, maybe we'll see some shield variants of that. Who knows? Do we think that this year is the year of armor, perhaps, especially with the Vindies being the ones down? You really don't shield fit those. Do you think this is the year of armor, or do you think that shield comps have their place and we just haven't seen them yet?
I think shield comps definitely have a place right now because obviously T2 drones come back, so obviously Vexen Navy issues, lots of Galente ships. bring back into the Alliance tournament. But you've got to remember, worms can be back, Geelers, and potentially rattlesnakes as well. So you've got that super strong shield setups going. So maybe you can go like double Geeler, double Sleipnir type of deal, and go like the kitey drones. I mean, there are a lot of, there's a lot of variations now, especially for shield. It isn't like shield spam, so yeah.
Well, let's go to this match, and hopefully we'll see some fantastic comms from both of these teams. It's going to be Spectre Fleet Alliance against Blades of Grass here for the 4th match of the day, AT15.
All right, guys, welcome back to Alliance